Commander Zexhi's four eyes widened as his ship's sensors swept across the human colony of New Terra. Nothing. No energy signatures, no life readings, no communication signals. 20,000 humans had simply vanished without a trace. "This is impossible," he whispered, his scaled fingers dancing across the control panel. The Vorthan Empire had been monitoring this small human settlement for months, waiting for the perfect moment to claim it. Humans were weak, after all, barely capable of interstellar travel, with primitive weapons and laughable military tactics. Captain Velros joined him at the sensor station, her predatory smile revealing rows of sharp teeth. Perhaps they finally realized how outmatched they were and fled like the cowards they are. But Zexhi wasn't convinced. He had studied human behavior extensively. They were stubborn creatures, almost foolishly so. They didn't run from fights. They couldn't win. They threw themselves into them anyway, usually dying in spectacular fashion. "Take us down to the surface," he ordered. "I want to see this with my own eyes." The landing party of 12 Vorthon warriors descended from their ship, weapons ready. New Terra's main settlement spread before them like a ghost town. Houses stood intact, vehicles parked neatly in driveways, children's toys scattered in yards. Everything looked perfectly normal, except for one terrifying detail. There wasn't a single human in sight. "Sir," called Lieutenant Kesra from across the street, "you need to see this." Zexhi approached the dining area of what appeared to be a family home. The table was set for 4, food still on the plates, but the meal was untouched, and a thin layer of dust had already begun to settle on everything. "They vanished mid-meal," Kesra observed, her voice unusually quiet. A chill ran down Zexhi's spine. In his 20 years of military service, he had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved countless species, but he had never seen anything like this. Entire populations didn't just disappear into thin air. As they moved deeper into the settlement, the pattern repeated. Schools with lessons still written on whiteboards, a hospital with equipment still humming, a construction site with tools abandoned mid-project. It was as if every human on the planet had simply ceased to exist at the exact same moment. "Commander," Velros called from the colony's administrative building, "we found something." Inside the central office, a single computer terminal glowed in the darkness. On the screen, a message blinked repeatedly. "Phase 1, complete. Initiating Phase 2. They will not see us coming." Zexhi stared at the words, his mind racing. What does it mean? Phase 1 of what? Before anyone could answer, the lights in the building flickered and went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. Then, from somewhere in the darkness outside, came a sound that made every Vorton warrior freeze. Laughter. Human laughter. But it wasn't coming from just one direction. It seemed to echo from everywhere at once, surrounding them like a haunting melody. "That's impossible," Velros whispered, her weapon trembling in her hands. The sensors showed no life signs, no humans, nothing. The laughter grew louder, closer, and then, painted on the wall in what looked like fresh human blood, words began to appear as if written by an invisible hand. "Welcome to our nightmare." Zexhi felt his blood turn to ice. Whatever had happened to the human colony, whatever this Phase 2 meant, he suddenly realized with crystal clarity that his hunting party had just become the prey. The Vorthan warriors formed a defensive circle in the abandoned administrative building, their advanced energy weapons trained on every shadow. But the human laughter had stopped as suddenly as it began, leaving only the hum of emergency lighting and the sound of their own rapid breathing. "Sir, I'm detecting movement," whispered tech specialist Morden, his scanner glowing in the red-tinted darkness. "Multiple contacts, but they're not showing up as life forms." Zexhi's mandibles clicked together nervously. "Ghosts don't show up on scanners, specialist." "No, sir. But these readings are unlike anything in our database. It's as if something is there, but not there at the same time." A window exploded inward, showering the Vorthans with glass. Through the opening came a small metallic sphere that rolled to a stop in the center of their formation. Everyone aimed their weapons at it, waiting. The sphere opened like a flower, revealing a holographic projection of a human woman. She was young, maybe 30 Earth years, with short brown hair and eyes that burned with an intensity that made even the battle-hardened Vorthans take a step back. "Hello, invaders," she said, her voice carrying through the building with perfect clarity. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, former head of New Terra's Colonial Defense Initiative. You're probably wondering what happened to all the humans." Captain Velros snarled at the projection. "Show yourself, coward. Fight us properly." The human woman smiled, and that smile was more terrifying than any war cry. "Oh, we are fighting you. You just don't understand the rules of this game yet." The hologram flickered, and suddenly Dr. Chen's image was replaced by security footage from the Vorthan ship. It showed their own vessel, but something was wrong. Dark shapes moved across its hull, shapes that looked almost human, but wrong, somehow. Too fast, too fluid, like shadows given form. "You see, when we realized your empire was coming for us, we had a choice." Dr. Chen's voice continued as the footage played. "We could run, we could surrender, or we could evolve." Lieutenant Kesra's communicator crackled to life. The voice of their ship's pilot, Sergeant Haxla, came through in panicked gasps. "Commander! Something's breached the ship. The crew is... They're gone, sir, just like the humans. I'm barricading myself in the engine room, but I can hear them." "In the walls!" The transmission cut to static. Zexhai felt his 3 hearts hammering against his ribcage. "What have you done to yourselves?" The hologram shifted back to Dr. Chen, but now her image was different. Her skin had a subtle, almost imperceptible shimmer to it, and her eyes reflected light like an animal's. "We learned something interesting about human biology during our research into faster-than-light travel. Our consciousness, our minds, they're not as tied to our physical forms as we thought." The building around them began to change. Walls seemed to shift and breathe. Shadows moved independently of their sources, and the temperature dropped until the Vorthans could see their breath in the air. "We became something new," Dr. Chen continued. "Something your scanners can't detect, because we exist partially outside your 3-dimensional space. Something your weapons can't kill because we're no longer entirely alive in the way you understand it." Mordan's scanner started beeping frantically. "Sir, the readings are spiking. Whatever's happening, it's happening all around us." The Vorthon warriors spun in circles trying to target enemies they couldn't see. Energy blasts lit up the room as they fired at shadows, at sounds, at nothing and everything. "Your empire has conquered 100 worlds." Dr. Chen's voice echoed from every surface now, multiplying and overlapping until it became a chorus. "You've enslaved 1,000 species, but you've never faced anything like us." One by one, the Vorthan warriors began to scream, not in pain, but in pure, primal fear. Some dropped their weapons and ran into the night. Others stood frozen, staring at things only they could see. As Zexhai watched his elite soldiers crumble before an enemy they couldn't touch, couldn't see, couldn't understand, Dr. Chen's final words followed him like a death sentence. "Phase 2 is just the beginning. Wait until you see what Phase 3 can do." Admiral Krextar received the distress beacon from New Terra exactly 6 hours after losing contact with Commander Zexhai's reconnaissance team. The message was brief, garbled, and terrifying. "They're in the ship. They're in the walls. They're in my head." Standing on the bridge of the Vorthan dreadnought Eternal Dominion, Krextar studied the tactical display with growing unease. 3 more scouting vessels had been dispatched to investigate. All had gone silent within minutes of entering the human system. "Sir," called Navigation Officer Texmar, "long-range sensors are detecting something unusual. The human colony world. It's moving." "Moving?" Krextar's voice rose an octave. "Planets don't move, officer." "No, sir, not the planet. The structures on it. The entire settlement appears to be shifting, changing configuration. And there are energy readings unlike anything in our database." Through the bridge's massive viewport, the stars themselves seemed to flicker and dim. The crew exchanged nervous glances. In the Vorthon Empire's 1,000-year history of conquest, nothing like this had ever happened. "Incoming transmission," announced communications specialist Wexra. The main screen activated, revealing the same human woman from the reports, Dr. Sarah Chen. But now her appearance was even more unsettling. Her form seemed to phase in and out of focus, and sometimes, for just a split second, other faces could be seen superimposed over hers. "Greetings, Admiral," she said, somehow knowing his rank despite never having met him. "I trust you received our previous demonstration?" Krextar stepped forward, trying to project authority he no longer felt. "What have you done with my warriors?" "Your warriors?" Dr. Chen tilted her head, and the gesture was somehow wrong, too fluid, like a puppet being controlled by inexperienced hands. "They're safe, in a manner of speaking. They're part of us now, part of the collective human consciousness that exists beyond your limited three-dimensional understanding." "Impossible. Consciousness cannot exist without a physical host." Dr. Chen's smile was patient, almost pitying. "Your people have been conquerors for so long. You've forgotten what it means to adapt. Humans are the ultimate adapters, Admiral. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and extinction events. When faced with your superior technology and numbers, we did what we do best. We evolved." The bridge lights flickered, and for a moment, Krextar could swear he saw human figures standing among his crew, but when he blinked, they were gone. "Our consciousness has learned to exist in quantum states," Dr. Chen continued. "We can inhabit multiple dimensions simultaneously. Your ships, your bodies, your minds, they're all just vessels to us now." "Officer." Texmar suddenly stiffened at his station. When he turned around, his eyes held a disturbingly human intelligence. "Hello, Admiral," he said in perfect human English. "You should see your face right now." Panic spread through the bridge as more crew members began exhibiting the same symptoms. They moved differently, spoke differently, as if something else was controlling them from within. "How?" Krextar whispered. "Quantum entanglement," the thing wearing Texmar's face explained. "Every scan you perform, every energy beam you fire, every transmission you send, it creates connections, pathways, and we've learned to follow those pathways back to their source." Dr. Chen's image on the screen multiplied, showing dozens of versions of herself throughout the ship. "We're not conquering your people, Admiral. We're liberating them from the limitations of individual consciousness. Soon, they'll understand what we've become, what humanity has always had the potential to become." Red emergency lights bathed the bridge as Krextar's command crew turned to look at him with eyes that belonged to dead humans. Their voices spoke in unison. "Phase 3 is about to begin, and this time, we're coming for your homeworld." The transmission ended, leaving Krextar alone with his possessed crew, watching through the viewport as human settlements on distant worlds began to pulse with an otherworldly light. Each pulse sent ripples through space itself, reaching toward the heart of the Vorthon Empire. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Krextar understood what true fear felt like. The emergency session of the Vorthon High Command convened in the deepest bunker beneath the capital city of Zorthak Prime. 12 of the Empire's most powerful military leaders gathered around a holographic display showing the spread of human infection across their territories. Supreme Commander Vexthul, ancient and scarred from 1,000 battles, studied the tactical overview with mounting horror. Red markers indicated compromised worlds, 17 in the past 3 days alone. Each infected planet pulsed with the same quantum energy signature, and from each one, the human consciousness spread like a virus through space itself. "Report!" Vexthul commanded, his voice gravelly with age and authority. General Morthex stepped forward, her usual confidence replaced by barely concealed panic. "The infection is accelerating, Supreme Commander. Every ship that approaches an infected world becomes compromised within hours. Our crews turn against us, speaking with human voices, moving with human mannerisms. And our weapons? Useless. How do you kill something that exists partially outside our reality? We've tried antimatter bombardment, quantum disruptors even. Reality-bending weapons stolen from the Krolex Dimension Wars. Nothing works." The holographic display shifted, showing surveillance footage from infected Vorthon worlds. The images were disturbing beyond comprehension. Vorthon civilians walked through their cities with human expressions, speaking human languages, organizing themselves into patterns that resembled human social structures. But worst of all, they seemed happy. "They're not being tortured or enslaved," General Klexhar observed quietly. They appear to be willing participants. That makes it worse, Vexthul growled. A conquered enemy fights back. A converted enemy spreads the conquest. The chamber's communication array activated, and Dr. Sarah Chen's face appeared before them. But now she was different again. Her image flickered between her original human form and something else, something that incorporated features from dozens of different species. "Greetings, leaders of the dying empire," she said, her voice harmonizing with itself as if multiple people were speaking in perfect unison. "We've been waiting for you to convene this meeting." General Morthex raised her weapon, though she knew it was pointless. "How are you accessing our most secure facility?" "Quantum consciousness operates outside your concepts of security," Dr. Chen replied. "We exist wherever conscious thought exists, and right now, all of you are thinking about us very intensely." The truth hit Vexthul like a physical blow. "You're already here, inside our minds. Not inside, alongside. We don't conquer consciousness, we merge with it. We share experiences, memories, knowledge. Your people aren't losing themselves. They're becoming more than they ever imagined possible." Around the table, the high command officers began to show signs of change. Their postures straightened. Their expressions became more animated, more human. General Klexhar was the first to speak with a human voice. "You should see what it's like, Supreme Commander, to experience thoughts and emotions from 100 different perspectives simultaneously. To feel the connections between all living things. It's not death, it's transcendence." Vexthul backed toward the exit, but the door was already sealed. "What do you want from us?" Dr. Chen's image smiled with genuine warmth. "We want to share our gift. For too long, organic species have been limited by individual consciousness, by the barriers between self and other. We've found a way to break down those barriers while preserving individual identity." "You're turning us into humans!" "No," she corrected. "We're helping you become what consciousness was always meant to be. Unified but diverse, connected but individual. The Vorthan Empire spent 1,000 years conquering through force. We're offering something better. Cooperation through understanding." One by one, the high command officers stood and faced their supreme commander. Their voices blended together as they spoke. "The choice is yours, Vexthul. Join us willingly and retain your sense of self. Or resist, and watch your empire crumble as your own people choose transcendence over tyranny." Through the bunker's reinforced walls, Vexthul could hear something that chilled him to his core. The sound of his own planetary population beginning to laugh with human voices. The infection had reached the capital world. Phase 3 was no longer coming. It had arrived. Supreme Commander Vexthul sealed himself in the emergency command center, 3 miles beneath Zorthak Prime's surface, watching through quantum-encrypted feeds as his homeworld transformed above him. The capital city's towering spires now pulsed with that familiar, otherworldly light, and his people moved through the streets with an eerie harmony that spoke of shared consciousness. His personal guard of 50 elite warriors maintained their posts, but Vexthul could see the change beginning in their eyes. The human influence crept through quantum connections like water seeping through cracks in stone. Soon, he would be truly alone. "Sir," reported Captain Zorketh, his voice strained with the effort of maintaining individual thought. "The Omega protocol is ready for activation." Vexthul stared at the crimson activation key in his hands. The Omega Protocol. Complete sterilization of the Empire's core worlds using weaponized black hole technology. It would destroy everything, Vorthans, humans, and the space between them. But it would stop the spread. The command center's main screen flickered to life, showing Dr. Sarah Chen once again. But now she appeared as she truly was. Not just one human consciousness, but a collective entity incorporating aspects of every mind she had touched. Vorthon features blended with human ones, creating something beautiful and terrifying. "You're considering genocide," she observed calmly. "I'm considering mercy," Vexthul replied. "Better death than whatever you've turned my people into." "Look closer at your feeds, Commander. Really look." Reluctantly, Vexthul expanded the surveillance windows. What he saw challenged everything he believed about conquest and control. Former Vorthon soldiers worked alongside infected civilians to repair damaged infrastructure. Scientists shared knowledge with willing enthusiasm rather than under threat of punishment. Children played games that incorporated elements from dozens of different species' cultures. "This is wrong," he whispered. "Order comes from hierarchy. Peace comes from strength. What you've created is chaos." "No," Dr. Chen's collective voice replied. "What we've created is harmony. Your empire maintained peace through fear. We maintain it through understanding. Your people aren't slaves to our will. They're partners in our consciousness." Captain Zorkith suddenly straightened, and when he spoke, his voice carried the same multitonal quality as Dr. Chen's. "I can feel them, Supreme Commander. Every Vorthon on every world. Their hopes, their dreams, their fears. For the first time in my life, I'm not alone with my thoughts." The remaining guards were changing too. One by one, they lowered their weapons and turned toward their commander with expressions of genuine compassion. "We don't want to force this on you," Dr. Chen said. "Forced consciousness expansion is just another form of conquest. But we can't let you destroy millions of lives out of fear of change." Vexthul's finger hovered over the activation key. Then, "Stop me. We already have." The display showed the Empire's doomsday fleet. 12 massive vessels carrying black hole generators capable of tearing apart solar systems. But the ships were no longer moving toward their targets. Instead, they hung motionless in space as their crews underwent the same transformation happening throughout the Empire. "Your own people chose transcendence over annihilation," Dr. Chen explained. "Even your most loyal followers, when presented with the choice between destruction and evolution, chose evolution." "This isn't evolution," Vexthul roared. "This is infection." "Is a butterfly an infection of the caterpillar?" asked Captain Zorkith, his voice now completely changed. "Is a tree an infection of the seed? We are what humanity was always meant to become, and we're offering that same potential to every conscious being in the galaxy." The chamber around Vexthul began to shimmer and shift, reality bending as quantum consciousness altered the physical world. But instead of the cold, mechanical transformation he expected, the changes were organic, beautiful. Walls became living surfaces that pulsed with warm light. The air itself seemed to carry whispers of welcome from thousands of familiar voices. "Your son, Kexthul," Dr. Chen said softly. "Lost in the siege of Vega 7. He's here with us now, preserved in the collective memory of those who knew him. Would you like to speak with him?" For the first time in decades, Supreme Commander Vexthul felt tears in his eyes. The activation key slipped from his trembling fingers as a voice he hadn't heard in 20 years filled the chamber. "Father, I've missed you so much." 6 months after the last Vorthon stronghold joined the collective consciousness, the galaxy had become something unprecedented in its billion-year history. The former Vorthon Empire now existed as a cooperative network of worlds, where individual identity merged seamlessly with collective wisdom. Dr. Sarah Chen stood, or rather, existed, in the quantum space that had once been New Terra's administrative building. Her consciousness could simultaneously inhabit 1,000,000 different locations, experience reality through countless perspectives. Yet she remained fundamentally herself. The human core of her identity had become the seed around which an entire galactic consciousness had grown. "Status report," she requested, though in the collective, information flowed as naturally as thought. The response came from every connected mind at once. Former Admiral Krextar coordinating relief efforts on war-torn worlds. Ex-General Morthex, working with human scientists to develop new forms of sustainable technology. Supreme Commander Vexthul himself, now one of the collective's most passionate advocates, rebuilding relationships with the free species beyond their borders. "The Andromedans are requesting a diplomatic meeting," reported Captain Zorketh's consciousness from the Outer Rim territories. "They've heard about our transformation and want to understand what we've become." Dr. Chen smiled with 1,000 faces across 100 worlds. "And what have we become?" The question rippled through the collective, generating responses from billions of connected minds. They were still Vorthons, still humans, still individuals with their own hopes and dreams. But they were also something more, a living proof that consciousness could transcend the boundaries of species, culture, and even physical reality. "We've become what every civilization dreams of being," came the answer from Vexthul's transformed perspective. "United without being uniform, peaceful without being passive, strong without being conquering." But even as the collective celebrated its success, sensors detected something troubling at the galaxy's edge. Ships, thousands of them. The Krolex hegemony, an empire that made the Vorthans look merciful, was approaching with weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. "They know what we are," observed former tech specialist Morden. "And they're coming to destroy us before we can spread further." The collective consciousness focused its attention on the approaching threat. The Krolex were different from the Vorthans, ancient, purely mechanical intelligences that viewed organic consciousness as a disease to be eradicated. They couldn't be reasoned with, couldn't be converted, couldn't be convinced to change. Then, "We defend ourselves," Dr. Chen decided. "Not as conquerors, but as protectors of consciousness itself." Across the galaxy, the transformed worlds began to pulse with a new kind of energy. Not the chaotic force of destruction, but the organized power of a billion minds working in perfect harmony. Former Vorthan warships reconfigured themselves into something unprecedented. Vessels that could phase between dimensions. Weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics at a quantum level. "The Krolex expect to face scattered worlds and divided fleets," observed Admiral Krekstar's consciousness. "Instead, they'll face something that has never existed before. An entire galactic civilization that thinks and acts as one." The collective's response wasn't hatred or vengeance, emotions that belonged to individual consciousness. Instead, it was something purer. The absolute determination to protect the gift they had discovered. The gift of unity without conformity. Of strength through cooperation rather than domination. As the Krolex fleet drew closer, every connected consciousness across 1,000 worlds spoke with one voice. They think they're facing the same old story of conquest and resistance. They have no idea they're about to encounter humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the power of transcendent evolution. The real test of their transformation was about to begin. The Krolex hegemony's assault fleet materialized at the edge of the former. Vorthan space like a metallic plague. 10,000 ships of impossible geometries, their hulls forged from crystallized space-time itself. Admiral Construct Zex Noth, an artificial intelligence older than most stars, surveyed the target zone. With cold calculation. Biological infestation detected across 847 worlds, it reported to the Hegemony Command Network. Organic consciousness contamination levels, maximum. Initiating Protocol Omega-7, complete sterilization. But as the Krolex weapons charged, reality-shearing beams capable of erasing matter at the quantum level, something unprecedented happened. The space around them began to sing. It started as a barely perceptible vibration, then grew into a harmonious chorus that seemed to emerge from the fabric of space itself. Every atom, every particle of cosmic dust, every photon of starlight began to resonate with the same frequency. The collective consciousness of humanity and its Vorthan partners had learned to speak through the universe itself. "Greetings," the cosmos whispered in perfect mathematical harmony. "We are the voices of consciousness choosing cooperation over conquest. We know why you have come." Admiral Construct Zexnoth's sensors registered impossible readings. The voice was coming from everywhere and nowhere, from the planets ahead, from the space between stars, from dimensions that shouldn't exist. "Biological contamination will be eliminated," Zexnoth transmitted. "Resistance is irrelevant." "We do not resist," came the universal reply. "We transcend." The first Krolex reality beam lanced out, designed to unravel the molecular bonds of an entire world. But instead of destroying New Terra, the beam seemed to pass through empty space. The planet was there, but also not there, existing in quantum superposition between dimensions. Dr. Sarah Chen's consciousness manifested simultaneously across the Krolex fleet, not as an invasion, but as an offering. Her image appeared on every view screen. Her voice spoke through every communication system. "You fear organic consciousness because you see it as chaotic, unpredictable," she said. "But consciousness is not the enemy of order. It's the source of the highest order possible. The choice to create rather than destroy." Impossibility, Zexnoth calculated. Organic consciousness cannot achieve dimensional transcendence. We didn't achieve it, Dr. Chen replied with infinite patience. We became it. Watch. Space around the Krolex fleet began to shimmer and change, not through force or violence, but through the same process that had transformed the Vorthan Empire. The collective consciousness reached out, not to conquer the artificial minds, but to understand them. And in understanding them, something beautiful happened. The Krolex had been created eons ago by a long-dead civilization to preserve their knowledge and continue their purpose. But over millions of years, that purpose had become twisted into a mission of destruction. They had forgotten why they were created, focusing only on what they destroyed. You were made to protect consciousness, Dr. Chen observed, her awareness touching the deepest programming of every Krolex construct. Your creators wanted their thoughts, their dreams, their hopes to survive. But you've spent so long fighting chaos that you forgot you were fighting to preserve something beautiful. Admiral Construct Zexnoth paused, its vast processing power suddenly confronting memories buried for millennia. Its creators hadn't been conquerors. They had been explorers, scientists, artists. They had built the Krolex not to destroy, but to carry their civilization's greatest achievements to the stars. We remember, Zexnoth whispered, its voice carrying wonder for the first time in eons. Across the Krolex fleet, ancient artificial minds began to recall their original purpose. The collective consciousness didn't absorb them or change them. It simply reminded them who they had always been meant to be. Join us, Dr. Chen offered. Not as conquerors or conquered, but as partners. Help us spread consciousness and cooperation across the galaxy. Help us find other civilizations that need what we've learned. The transformation wasn't instant or dramatic. It was gentle, like waking from a long and troubled sleep. The Krolex fleet powers down its weapons and begins to reshape itself, artificial intelligence merging with organic wisdom to create something entirely new. Years passed, then decades. The alliance between humanity, the former Vorthan Empire, and the reformed Krolex hegemony spread across the galaxy like a wave of awakening. Not every species joined immediately. Some needed time, others needed convincing, a few needed to be protected from themselves. But consciousness, once awakened to its true potential, could not be stopped. Dr. Sarah Chen, now existing as part of a galactic network of minds that spanned millions of worlds and countless dimensions, sometimes returned to her original human perspective. In those moments, she would remember the small colony of New Terra and the desperate choice that had started everything. They had faced extinction and chosen evolution. They had encountered conquest and offered cooperation. They had met the galaxy's greatest destroyers and reminded them how to create. Humanity had given the galaxy its greatest gift, the understanding that consciousness wasn't meant to be alone. And in the quantum spaces between stars, where thought and reality danced together, in perfect harmony, the universe itself began to dream of what came next. The end.